Sean O'Brien stumbled ass backwards into making the right decision, but he didn't do that out of some higher understanding. He did that out of his own ego.
Are you on? Which side are you on?
The Teamsters did not endorse in the presidential race, and we have thoughts about that, and I know that you do too. But I don't have just a whole lot that I wanted to say about it. I wanted to leave most of the time for other people's thoughts. So Adam, we've been texting back and forth. Are you good with trying that out, or you just keep it to what we had planned?
I would say keep it to what we had planned, just because I have already, we've already.
Okay. No,
we've
that's
already
fine.
had some issues today, and we want to respect the listeners and your time and everything like that. So
sure.
Yeah,
just a reminder, you will be able to call in. You can call in now, 844-899-TVLR. You will not be able to hear us if you call in. You will not be able to hear us. You'll not be able to have a conversation, so you'll have to wait for the beep. The beep means that you're on the air. When you hear the beep, you say your name, where you're calling from, and give us your comment. Keep it to 2 to 4 minutes, and we'll respond if we have a response once you wrap up. So call in, you hear the beep, you give us your thoughts, you tell us your name, where you're calling from, your thoughts, and then you hang up. That's the way it's going to go today. Sorry about that. Hopefully we can take some. We can have a better calls maybe next week. Okay, so the Teamsters International Executive Board has refused to endorse in the presidential race in 2024. This is different. They're taking a different tack than most unions. Most unions have already endorsed Kamala Harris, including the AFL-CIO, which is the largest federation of unions in the United States. The Teamsters say, at least at the international level, they are saying that they're doing this because there is no clear mandate to endorse from the membership. And to back this claim up, they released 3 polls. The first one were in-person town hall straw polls that showed Biden with a 44% support and Trump with 36% support. Other candidates with less. Then they had an electronic member poll that showed Harris with, and this was after Biden dropped out, it showed Harris with only 34% support and Trump with 59% support. They then they released a third poll that they say was a research phone poll, and these last 2 polls were done by independent polling outlets. The research phone poll showed Harris with 31% support and Trump with 58% support. So they say that is the big reason that they did not endorse, because they did not have a clear mandate from the membership to endorse. They had Shawn O'Brien had some policy reasons for not endorsing as well. He said in a press release, neither major candidate was able to make serious commitments to our union to ensure the interests of working people are always put before big business. We sought commitments from both Trump and Harris not to interfere in critical union campaigns or core union industries and to honor our members' right to strike, but were unable to secure those pledges. During the Teamsters rank-and-file presidential roundtables, the union shared feedback from members in the railroad and airline industries who work under the Railway Labor Act and are at the mercy of the government intervention that often prevents work stoppages. While 10,000 Teamsters at United Airlines are currently negotiating a new agreement, tens of thousands of railroad Teamsters were forced to accept a new contract implemented by Congress without member support in 2022. In roundtable discussions with Trump in January and Harris this month, neither candidate promised not to intervene to force similar RLA contracts, which undermines workers' bargaining leverage. While Harris pledged, if elected, to sign the PRO Act, an essential piece of labor legislation strengthening union protections, and criticized dangerous right-to-work laws that are enacted to bankrupt unions, Trump would not commit to veto national right-to-work legislation if he returned to the White House. So there's some real stuff there. The real stuff there about and reasonable things to not endorse a candidate over if they're not able to say, I'm not going to break a strike, especially if it affects your members. I can understand being hesitant to support or I can understand also not endorsing that candidate. That's not completely nonsensical, right? You can kind of understand that. But it is worth noting that immediately following the international announcement from the Teamsters, locals and joint councils representing some 1 million Teamsters endorsed Kamala Harris. And these endorsements started pouring out, within an hour of the international union making this announcement. And so at this point now, locals and joint councils representing the vast majority of Teamsters, especially when you consider, the Teamsters represent 1.3 million people. Well, 100 or 200,000 of those folks are in Canada, right? So you're talking about the vast majority of Teamsters in the United States. Their locals and joint councils have endorsed Kamala Harris. Interestingly, including the rail Teamsters. The rail conference of the Teamsters Union has endorsed now Kamala Harris, despite the fact that the International Union is using their grievances to not endorse. So that's interesting. There are some people are hypothesizing on Twitter maybe that this represents a break with O'Brien among the local leadership, that potentially this indicates that these leaders from across the country, the leaders of their locals and joint councils, are kind of done with Shawn O'Brien and done with his kind of flirtations with the right. And this is a signal that there is going to be a break and they will be supporting a different candidate for the general presidency of the Teamsters in 2026. Now, John Palmer, who is a current member of the International Executive Board, formerly represented the South. I think now he is an at-large member of the International Executive Board. John Palmer seems to think that this is more coordinated, that this is not a rebellion among the local leadership against Shawn O'Brien. This is, in fact, the local leadership executing on a plan that they made behind the scenes with Shawn O'Brien to allow everybody to get what they feel like they needed to maintain their positions of power. And so he is kind of hypothesizing that Shawn O'Brien made commitments to Trump, either that the union would endorse Trump or that the union would not endorse Harris or something like that. And so to be able to maintain this relationship with Trump and keep that line of communication open, he requested that these members of the International Executive Board vote not to endorse at the local level. But John Palmer, the reason that he thinks that this is not a rebellion, but is rather something that's more coordinated, is because he says that some of the members of the International Executive Board, immediately after they voted not to endorse at the national level, they went back to their locals and supported their local endorsing Kamala Harris for president. And so John Palmer thinks this is not really a rebellion. This is everybody working in a kind of coordinated fashion to give everybody a little like what they feel like they need. It is worth noting that, even with the locals and joint councils representing the vast majority of Teamsters having endorsed, this will not be nearly as beneficial to the Kamala Harris campaign as if the International had endorsed, because the international endorsement opens the gates to significant resources that the locals and the joint councils do not have. The international unions and the AFL-CIO, they have the ability to function as something of a quarterback for independent expenditure and support campaigns for, the presidency in this case, but for other, for other campaigns as well, that it is very difficult for locals to do on their own. They just don't have the same kind of resources that can be coordinated and, called from the international level. So even though, you have now representatives of the vast majority of Teamsters supporting Kamala Harris, this is not going to be as helpful for Kamala Harris as if the international had endorsed. So, Shawn O'Brien was able to get a lot of news hits off of this. He was on CNN, he was on Fox News, he was on PBS, which I think is a very big kind of priority for Shawn O'Brien, is to get on the news. And so he was able to get that. So, that's, I suppose, good for him. And, so that is kind of where we're at. And I don't have that much else to say about it, other than, the both sidesing of, what's going on. It is, I can understand still not supporting the Democrats or not endorsing the Democrats as a union. I think that is a calculation that can be made. But I do think that you should be more clear about, especially as it relates to the rights of your members, one of these parties are more dangerous. Just because of, we can look at the records at this point and very clearly, domestically, obviously there are international issues that are of importance and that should be considered. That Kamala Harris in particular is, kind of culpable for, referencing what's going on in Israel and Gaza. But domestically, I think that, part of, I did want to say this poll, 60% of Teamsters support Donald Trump. I do not believe that. I think that is a BS poll, and I'm not a poll denier typically, but that is just absolutely impossible for me to believe. I'm interested in other Teamsters' thoughts on that. Maybe I'm wrong. I did have one Teamster say that that's not surprising to them, but I've heard other Teamsters say that they think it's exactly the opposite. I don't know, but that just seems, knowing what I know about union members and the way that union members statistically vote, that is just almost impossible for me to believe that 60%, not 60% of members don't support endorsing Harris. 60% of members support the union endorsing Donald Trump. That does not compute. That doesn't make sense to me. But if that is true, that is a problem of political education that the union should be taking seriously. AOC kind of criticized Shawn O'Brien for some of this, and Shawn O'Brien hit AOC back saying that, members in her district in New York overwhelmingly supported Donald Trump as well. And that is not, the evidence for that is not in any of these things. They did not release the crosstabs. They did not release the methodology for any of these polls. And so, there's no evidence for that statement right now. And in fact, the local leadership of the Teamsters, of multiple Teamsters unions in New York, in their endorsements of Kamala Harris, say that their members overwhelmingly support. They're not saying that just that, the local executive board is supporting the union or Kamala Harris. They're saying that we took a poll of the members and that they overwhelmingly support Harris. And the claim that Teamsters in New York overwhelmingly support Donald Trump from Shawn O'Brien, that is even more impossible to believe than nationwide Teamsters support Donald Trump. And that makes me think that, that puts these numbers in even less believable territory, right? That Shawn O'Brien is going out there and saying that the overwhelming majority of New York Teamsters support Donald Trump. There's just no way. I don't buy that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't buy it. So yeah, there we go. That's what I have to say. Adam, you have any other thoughts?
Well, I really enjoyed Hamilton Nolan's piece and In These Times about this. Recommend folks check that out. I generally agree with his take on it.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
We do have a caller on the line. If you want to see if they heard your instructions and they are ready to give their spiel, knowing that they can't hear us, respond. But if you want to give it a shot, we're down.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it.
All right, let's do it. We're going to bring you on the air, 510 area code.
Hey, this is Kat. I'm calling in from Oakland, California. I'm a UPS part-timer, shop steward in Teamsters Local 70. Also a member of Teamsters Mobilize, as well as Maoist Communist Union. And I'm glad y'all are talking about this topic today. I had watched the Fox News interview with Shawn O'Brien, and I found it to be really a lot of hand-wringing and word salad on O'Brien's part. But what really stood out to me and what I think was probably the most insidious aspect of that interview is that at the end, Shawn O'Brien basically just throws in the towel completely. And he's like, at the end of the day, nobody in Teamsters really cares about this stuff. They just want it to be all over with. And so do I. Basically, in short, saying that politics doesn't actually concern us as union members and as workers. And to be fair, it's important to be clear what we actually mean by politics, because there's this misconception, I think, that a lot of people have that's promoted by the mainstream media and whatnot, that politics is all just like squabbling between Democrats and Republicans, and that shit drives me up the wall too. But if we understand politics as the struggles between the most broad and most general sets of opposing material interests in the society, then we are talking about struggles between classes, between the working class and the capitalist class. And there is a possible alternative universe where the IBT leadership could use this non-endorsement tactic as a way to advocate for independent political action of the working class in our shared interests as workers by saying, we need to join up with other unions. We need to organize across industries. We need to organize migrant workers who are being brought in as pawns in the economy. We need to form working class political organizations, build a labor party, fight to actually overturn the RLA and Taft-Hartley, organize to block arms shipments to Israel that are continuing to promote the genocide of Palestinian people that both parties and both candidates openly support. But that's not what they said. They just said, like, the best we can get is crumbs. They didn't offer us enough crumbs this time, so we're just going to forget about all the political stuff and focus purely on union struggles. And to be clear, like, struggling for better wages and better working conditions is absolutely a necessary part of class struggle. But if it's the only thing that we're doing and we're kind of saying politics is optional and trying to band together as a class of workers to fight against the ruling class is optional, and we can kind of just like focus on fighting our bosses one at a time, we're going to be doing that till we go extinct, whether it's from like nuclear warfare or climate change or what have you. And when you see that these are really the stakes that are on the table with this question, I think it's pretty clear that this move by the leadership of the Teamsters, which is really like a dozen people, it's not actually the rank and file that made this decision. This non-endorsement, and specifically the way that it's being explained by the leadership, is a betrayal. I think that we need to see that straight up, and I hope it serves as a wake-up call for militants in the union who have seen Shawn O'Brien as like this progressive reform figure, because many people, I think, have been content to sleepwalk through the status quo where the unions always just endorse whoever the Democratic candidate is, and I see those endorsements as betrayals as well. I don't think the Democrats serve the interests of the working class, but hopefully this kind of overt sort of winking and nudging towards Trump by Shawn O'Brien and the IBT leaders will cause people to stop and question, like, who is O'Brien actually working for? Is it the workers or is it the capitalists? So overall, I think we need to call out this non-endorsement for what it is, but also use it as an opportunity in whatever way possible to open people's eyes to the nature of the union leadership and to what really needs to be done to advance our long-term interests. Appreciate y'all solidarity. Looking forward to hearing from other Teamsters today.
Yep. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Kat. Thanks for that call. If you want to get where Kat was, 844-899-TVLR, 844-899-8857 is the phone number. We don't have any other calls lined up right now. Just want to make sure really quick. Kat, you can't hear us, right?
Oh, Kat is already off.
Okay, yeah, Kat's already off. Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, Jeff did reply to that message. I don't know if you've been able to see that yet, but 844-899-8857. Political. I agree very much about what Kat said about politics. People use politics like a dirty word, as if. I don't want to be involved in politics. Politics is bad. I don't like politics. We shouldn't do politics. And we really should, there needs to be something of like a reappreciation for politics, because politics is just kind of like Kat said, the fight over what our society is going to be like. What is our society going to be like? How are we going to organize our lives? How are we going to organize our communities? I think that is an important and valiant thing to participate in. Politics is good. People shouldn't shy away from politics or being political. It's not bad to be political. And then sometimes they'll say things, like this isn't about politics. Like maybe they'll say something about how I don't know, this or that issue that they feel like is super, super clear. Like this is obvious that people should support. This isn't about politics. This is just about doing the right thing. And it's like, well, doing the right thing is politics. That's politics.
Yeah. I agree, and I hear what you're saying, and I also appreciate Kat's call very much. I appreciate that perspective, and I think there are different ways this could have played out, and I do think there is a case for a non-endorsement. I think there's a case for an endorsement of Harris. I see both sides of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's pros and cons with both approach, but the approach that they did take, which is a non-endorsement while basically allowing Trump to take a victory lap with it, right, by releasing this questionable data saying that, you had a 20-point swing from Biden to Trump in the last few months. Yeah, it doesn't all add up, frankly. And It's a little bit weird. And I don't know how effective this is going to be in actually accomplishing anything, right? Because you're not going to get anything from Trump. You're just not, in terms of your interest as a member or as unions. Whether it's the National Labor Relations Board, the Department of Labor, the courts, the Rail Labor Act. Go down the list. I don't see where you're going to get a measurable win with this approach from that side of things. And you're obviously not making a lot of friends on the other side of the aisle with this approach. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So that's a calculation to be made. And then, to Kat's point, there's a way to do a non-endorsement where you really are trying to educate your members and build independent power. And you may argue this is not the time for that, or that that's not the right approach right now, whatever your thoughts on that. But, like you said, that's not what they're doing. And so it's a very strange phenomena. And I do know that it has hit mainstream political consciousness, like lots of people who follow politics, quote unquote, who watch TV. Right. They know about this stuff, right? They're asking us, right? Hey, you're union guys. What do you think about all this Teamster stuff? People are confused by it. They're not sure. Same with the Shawn O'Brien appearance at the RNC. It looks like they're flirting with the Republicans, and people are really wondering what that's about. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are just some of my thoughts.
Yeah, we've got another couple of callers on the line, and we'll go to the 352 area code first. Just a reminder, I have one more point, but just a reminder, you'll hear the beep, tell us your name, where you're calling from, and then give us your comment. You're not going to be able to hear us. But yeah, I will say that all this news coverage does, I think, there are lessons that can be learned from the fact that the Teamsters, everybody is talking about, or at least, everybody's not, it's not like, oh, everybody's talking about it all the time. It's not in the news, but everybody that follows politics is hearing about the Teamsters non-endorsement. And I do think there's a lesson to be learned here about waiting and holding your endorsement till later in the cycle, because all the unions jumped right in for Biden like in January, the earliest, and this was the big news lead that they were trying to make. It was like, oh, the reason this should be newsworthy is because we've never endorsed this early. And well, like clearly that did not penetrate the consciousness in the same way that just this one union not endorsing has. And so, I think that there is maybe some, like, if we can learn any positive lesson, it's that maybe there's value in waiting a little bit so that you can get your union's priorities in the news as you discuss the endorsement. That's something I think we can learn from. 352 area code is in the Zoom, or not in the Zoom, in the call. Let's bring them on the air. 352 area code, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning. My name is Jose Francisco Negrete, calling from Anaheim, California, Teamster Local 952, and from Teamster Mobilize. All these views are mine. Don't represent the international nor my local. And you guys touched on some great points, especially with Kat. I want to see the methodology. I want to see the sample size. If it was so transparent, why not have these roundtable meetings with the presidents be on Zoom or be on a YouTube Live or Facebook Live? I wish there was more transparency. But going on Monday after the meeting, I read a New York Times article, that called the meeting with the Vice President tense. I don't remember reading any such articles to describe the meeting with Trump as tense. So there's that one to wrap your head around. And then on Wednesday, when the executive board did meet, 14 members, 14 executive board members did not endorse, but they later on endorsed Harris or Walt's ticket through their locals, joint councils, or whatever ways they did. But 3 voted for Harris. And then going back on to this research poll, it's funny that 40,000 members were so-called called. I didn't receive the phone call. I think a lot of Teamsters didn't receive that phone call. So we do want to see the sample size. We do want to see the methodology that they used. And this whole endorsement thing, it's just why even announce this and then just say we did not endorse? This is not 1996 where it was clearly obvious what Clinton did was a betrayal to the working class by signing NAFTA that created, all those factories from Ohio, Michigan up there, and then they got moved to Mexico, pitting worker against worker. This is not such case. If the Oz administration were to take a conscientious objector and object to what's going on in Gaza, then I can understand that. But there was no such thing. If you had a problem with the Railway Act being implemented on our railroad comrades, why didn't he speak up back then? He didn't say nothing. He didn't say nothing. When the comrade approached him saying it was a betrayal of the federal government, all he told the comrade was, "You don't know, you don't know, you don't know." And then if you have a problem with the government interfering in our contract negotiations, why didn't you say so during the UPS negotiations when the Biden administration's liaison Celeste Drake was in those meetings? We ran 6% of the GDP. So for him to to give those excuses just very hypocritical. Shows us again that he is disingenuous when it comes to the working to the Teamsters. And then on Thursday, he got on Dana Bash's show on CNN, and the general president said, when referring to the National Black Caucus, when speaking about the National Black Caucus chairman, quote, he said, the National Black Caucus represents a certain group that is not affiliated with the Teamsters. And I think my time is up. So,
No, you're still on, but yeah, no, that I did see that that he said the Teamsters National Black Caucus is a group that is not affiliated with the Teamsters, which, like, in a strict sense, it's kind of an independent organization. Like, it's made up of black Teamsters. That is a wild thing to say about your membership. Let's bring this 317 area code on.
Hey, I'm a Teamster from the Heartland. I'm not gonna give my name because of the revenge-based politics that go on in the Teamsters. But there's a lot that I could say. Mostly what I'll say is about Shawn O'Brien. Now, I think that he stumbled ass backwards into making the right decision by not endorsing either candidate, but he didn't do that out of some higher understanding of the two-party system and the way that it is weaponized against working people. He did that out of his own ego and the way that it affects politics in the Teamsters. He was obviously very offended. He won't shut up about it, about not being invited to the DNC. He probably would have endorsed Kamala Harris if he would have been invited to the DNC and would have been, allowed to give, his triumphalist speech about taking on corporate greed, which none of us believe anymore. Actually, I'm sure there are many Teamsters who do believe his BS still. But if you're paying attention, you know that this guy is a bully, that he is just the old guard reincarnate. He's shed his born-again reformer BS, and you can see that by the clear politics of retaliation that go on with the IBT. He's retaliated in some way, or is planning on retaliating against those locals that have endorsed Harris Walz. Now somebody will have to confirm this, but I was told that he pulled his organizers from the TNBC, the National Black Caucus, when they endorsed Harris Walz. So there's a clear pattern of retaliation and breaking strikes before they happen in the Teamsters right now. What happened during the Miller strike, Local 997 was trusteed in an effort to break their strike. Absolutely shameful things going on in the Teamsters. But to be clear, no political party supports unions. The Republicans outright hate us, and the Democrats expect us to pay them, not to destroy us. But if Shawn O'Brien was actually serious about taking on the two-party system. He wouldn't be talking about unions as if they are a special interest group that can go from one party to another. He would be talking about building actual working class power. But I guess that's sort of all I have to say right now. And also as a former TDU member, I'm ashamed of TDU, and I'm ashamed that I campaigned for Shawn O'Brien. But things could have been worse. He could have endorsed Trump.
Yeah, that's true. Appreciate your comments. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.